You know, when the NHL expanded to bring in the Hartford Whalers, Quebec Nordiques, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Winnipeg Jets in the 1979-80 season, a lot of interest was milling about over Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers. We all know that Gretzky led the Oilers to the last Africa Cup final against the Jets, which the Jets won. But the 1979-80 season for the Oilers team itself was much more than the story of Wayne Gretzky tying Marcel Dionne winning the Hart Trophy as the MVP of the league. It was a story of picks gone wrong in the expansion draft, trades gone wrong, draft picks gone right, and the overall lack of effort the team had on the road that year after a 78-79 season that were consistent both at home and the road. Gretzky only really came into his own in the second half of the season once all the lines were figured out. So bear with me, this podcast is not about Wayne Gretzky's first season. It's mostly about the first season of the Edmonton Oilers in 79-80. Now, the Oilers campaign in the NHL was their 8th overall season, the first year they played in the NHL. Again, part of the 4 teams of the WHA-NHL merger. Now, the Oilers were led by rookie superstar Wayne Gretzky, who was not eligible for a Calder Trophy because he played 1 year pro in the WHA. He tied for the league in points at 137. However, he lost the Art Rose Trophy due to scoring 2 fewer goals than winner Marcel Dionne. Gretzky, however, won the Hart as MVP of the league. But again, the NHL, in its crazy wisdom, allowed Solani to be Rookie of the Year later on, but didn't want Gretzky to be eligible. Now, Edmonton's big problem was in the nets that year. They played 6 goalies during the campaign, mostly by Eddie Mio, a very capable number 2 or number 3, but also Ron Lowe, who was picked up on a trade with the Nordiques. Lowe had a good season again in the second half with a 2-1 record. Now, overall, they ended up 4th in the Smythe and 8th in the Campbell, which got him in the playoffs. They ended up 28, 39, and 13 with a 17, 14, and 9 record at Northlands, and 11, 25, and 4 on the road. Goals for, no problem. They're 9th overall, 301, but goals against, 4 a game, 20 overall. Now, head coach Glenn Sather put the players through his paces. Larry Gordon was GM, but Ron Chipperfield, who was a decent WHR, was made captain for most of the year, but the captaincy was left vacant in March. Now, they had a good affiliate in the CHL called the Houston Apollos, which a lot of people know was the namesake of the Montreal Canadiens affiliate back in the day. Now, they made the playoffs, but were quickly swept out by the powerful Philadelphia Flyers in 3 games. Of course, the first round back then was a best of 5. Now, Oilers fans were very excited about being part of the NHL and of the future of the team, because basically they felt that with the right, players coming in, something good was going to happen. Now, the October was a terrible month for them. They went 1-5-4. November 4-7-2, December 4-7-1, and like I say, they really started the ball rolling after Christmas. There were 6-6-3 in January, 5-7-2 in February, 7-6 in March, and 1-1-1 in April. So again, they were decent. Now, when they got into playoffs, they lost the first game in overtime to the Flyers, lost the second game at the Spectrum 5-1. Then the Flyers wrapped up 3-2 against Edmonton at Northlands. Now, we all know the Flyers had a big winning streak that year, and they eventually became Stanley Cup finalists, only to lose 6 games to the Islanders on Bob Nystrom's goal. Now, again, scoring leaders from the season. Wayne Gretzky, 137 points, 51 goals. Blair McDonald, 94 points, 80 games, 6 goals. Stan Weir with one of his best seasons ever, 66 points in 79 games, including 33 goals. Brett Callahan at 23 goals. And Dave Lumley, who came over with a trade from Montreal, which ended up being Montreal's right to draft Rick Natras, he had 20 goals. Now, this is the goalies they had this year. Eddie Mio at 34 games. Edmonton Oiler, 79 Holdover Dave Dryden went 2-7-3 in 14 games. Jim Corsi, a very capable number 2 and number 3, 8-14-3. Don Cutts went 1-2-1. Bob Dupuis went 0-1. And of course Ron Lowe 8-2-1, but with a very high goals against average 3.42. Now in the playoffs, Mark Messier and Gretzky led the way, as did Blair McDonald, and of course Don Murdoch coming over really helped them in the playoffs, as did the young Brett Callahan. Now that year was kind of weird. A lot of NHLers, former WHA'ers had their first game, including Brett Callahan, Gretzky, Chipperfield, Peter Driscoll, Blair McDonald, Mark Messier, Dave Semenko, Risto Settleton, Dave Hunter, Kevin Lowe as well. So there was Eddie Mio, of course. Colin Campbell had his 300 game with Oilers that year, and the roster again, it was hard to determine exactly what they were dealing with. Now I'm just going to go over this very quickly because I know it's very weird. They tried a whole bunch of older players and players in trades to see if they could balance the lineup. I think they had over 50 line combinations with about 35 or 40 forwards. Now, some came over in trade, some were drafted and never played with Edmonton. But here's I'm going to break it down. We just talked about Gretzky and McDonald, Weir, Callahan, Lumley, Hunter. Doug Hicks was there, very good on defense, had a good year. Ron Chipperfield was around, Risto Siltanen, Pat Price, of course, the future Quebec Nordique. Cam Connor came over in the trade. You had Don Ashby, Al Hamilton, of course, the former WHA. Now, weird. Bobby Schmutz, who was one of the big stars from Boston, came over in the trade, but was later traded after 29 games, scoring 8 goals. Lee Fogland from the Sabres came over, had a good season. Again, Colin Campbell, the veteran. Don Murdoch came over in trade. Bill Slett, the longtime Flyer, he was there for 20 games. And young Peter Driscoll, good prospect. Former Montreal Canadian Dan Newman was there. And again, the players that were coming in: Ron Carter, Mike Forbes, Brian Baltimore, Jim Harrison, center line, Mike Toll, Alex Tati, Don Cutts, Wayne Bianchin, the former Pittsburgh Penguin. But this is kind of weird. It's like a who's who of hockey cards back in the day. Now, they made quite a few trades. They picked up a whole bunch of players via trade, including, again, that led to a draft. Now, they picked up, again, by draft, Glenn Anderson, then Dave Lumley, Dan Newman, Tom Rolson, Russell Silverman, Dave Semenko, Mark Messier, of course, via draft, Steve Smith, and a weird trade with Toronto for Reggie Thomas. You had Jim Harrison, Alex Tidy, Bobby Schmutz, Don Ashby, then Donnie Murdoch, and, of course, Ron Lowe. Now, free agents they signed, including Clayton Paschal, John Bednarski, Kerry McKinnon, an international star, Jim Corsi, Roy Sumner, Don Cutts, and Dennis Patterson. Now, in the draft, you're not going to get a better top three than this. Kevin Lowe, Messier, and Anderson. From the Ramparts, again, the Cincinnati Stingers of the WHA, we did a previous podcast, and Glenn from the Denver Pioneers of the WCHA. But the expansion draft picks were who's who. This is kind of, he didn't know what was going to happen, so this is the players that he only could protect so many, but these are the players he took. And like I said, if you know hockey cards in the late 70s, there's a lot of familiar names here. Again, Pete Lepresti, Doug Favell, Cam Connor, Lee Fogland, Pat Price, Colin Campbell, Larry Brown of all people, who played 555 games, Ray Areshenkov, Inga Hamstrom, who never played a game in Edmonton, but an interesting draft pick. Johnny Gould, a very good player with the Flames, had 251 points prior to being drafted. Dougie Hicks from Chicago. Tom Madure, because a lot of people know he gave up hockey to become a Jehovah's Witness. Wayne Bianchin, a very underrated player from the Penguins, a good left winger. Mikey Forbes, a defenseman. Doug Patey, who a very underrated player, and Bob Kelly from the Chicago Blackhawks. So they had, like I said, again, 40 to 50 players we're looking at, and you look at the heavy roster. Like I said, in goal, Cutts, Dryden, Lowe, Mio, Dupuis, and Corsi. Defensemen: Lee Falkland, Al Hamilton, Kevin Lowe, Doug Hitz, Colin Campbell, Russell Sultan, Paul Pupil, Mike Forbes, Pat Price, Byron Baltimore, and John Bednarski. On the wing, Kerry McKinnon, Dave Hunter, Blair McDonald, Wayne Bianchin, Alex Toddy, Dan Newman, Bobby Schwartz, Cam Connor, Brett Callahan, Billy Flett, Cowboy Flett, of course, Dave Lumley, Ron Carter, Peter Driscoll, Dave Semenko, Don Murdoch. Now, and the centers, Ron Chipperfield, Jimmy Harrison, Ron Arshenkoff, Mark Messy, Don Ashby, Stan Weir, Mike Toll, Gretzky. Now, look at that team within 3 years. Stanley Cup finalists. How many players were left by the time they played in the Stanley Cup? The key ones were there. Again, no Moog, no Fuhr, Fogelin, Lowe, Siltanen, the big three on defense, of course. Now you had Hunter, you had, again, Brett Callahan, Davey Lumley, Semenko, Messier, and Gretzky. So only 9 players really from that team were left over. They redid their whole goaltending. They got Steve Smith later on to balance off their defense. Later on, picked up a lot of former stars with their teams, and it really worked out. But if you were an Edmonton Oiler fan in 79-80, you would see Gretzky playing, and you would lose 7-2 or 5-2 or whatever it is. But you know the weirdest thing during the season? Toronto gave up Stan Weir to Edmonton, so Edmonton would not take Ron Ellis. They were thinking about bringing Ron Ellis as the captain of the squad. I kid you not. This is the rumor I heard. And Harold Ballard must have blocked it or whatever. And let me tell you something. If Ron Ellis would have been on that team, he would have scored 20 goals, and I think they would have done really well in that first season. But it wasn't the long-term plans. As you know, Ron Ellis came back to play for Team Canada and returned to the NHL. Ron Ellis would have done a lot with those young players. But for me, the biggest confusion was, why did Buffalo give up on Lee Falkland? Okay, why was certain players like Pat Price and Wayne Bianchin and players like that, and Bobby Schwartz? I don't know why they traded Bobby Schwartz a second time, unless, of course, his on-ice machinations were drawing too much negativity. Bobby Schwartz on Gretzky's line, my God, Bobby was a pure sniper. But, and Cowboy Flett as well. But I think the big steal for them was getting Dave Lumley from Montreal, because there was no room, and of course Dave Semenko did a lot. But Don Murdoch revived his career for a little bit in Edmonton, and why not make Gretzky captain that year? It didn't make any sense. Maybe because Glenn Zader wasn't GM yet and Muckler wasn't around. So anyway, 79-80 season. There's lots of video out there, but it's a specific game. I think he played in Toronto late in the season, where Gretzky was chasing Dion. Could have been in March. I think he had 6 points or 7 points, and Bill Hewitt was more than excited. And Blair McDonald had a good game. Don Ashby. If you have a chance, it's like watching John Wayne and all those shitty 42-minute B movies before you watch True Grit. There was flashes of brilliance there, but Messier wasn't Mark Messier that year. I think he had no more than 3 or 4 goals. I could be wrong here, which I'm not, but But the best defenseman on the team that year was Lee Falkland, in my personal opinion. Played defense, some offense sometimes, but to see how Dave Dryden stayed a little bit too long with Edmonton in 79-80 after that great season, last season he had with the Oilers, and maybe he figured his brother was going to come back with Montreal. That's what he stayed around for a while. Who knows? But Eddie Mio too. I always like Eddie Mio as a goalie, and Jim Corsi as well, a good Italian. So, but if anybody knows out there why Bobby Schwartz was traded after Edmonton got him, you let me know. I'd really like to know. I hear different rumors why, but it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense, because I'm glad you got Don Ashby. He was a good player, but he could have traded somebody else, eh? And anyway, it's a head scratcher. And why Boston traded Bobby Schwartz in the first place for someone like Dan Newman? Dan Newman was a good player, but he couldn't score like Bobby Schwartz. Anyway, so listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's the first season of Wayne Gretzky and the Edmonton Oilers 79-80. If you like what we're doing here, give us a like, comment, and subscribe. And the mysteries of hockey. 40 years later, we still wonder why, again, 55 to 60 players, and only 7 remained for the Stanley Cup final in 83. That's, it's quite a turnover. Maybe similar to the New York Mets from 62 to 69. Think about it. Thanks for listening. Bye.